What's going on, everybody? Jeff Holiday here, and today we're going to be touching on an older subject, but with a whole new twist. And the reason being is because I like to go with the flow of things, and this flow has gotten to a point where I'm ready to engage with it again. I'll explain. You see, not that long ago, I made a video on Dr. John Bergman, a chiropractor, who was claiming that he could cure the diseases of the clickbait YouTubers XtremeGamez's. Now, he also claimed that he could pretty much cure anything through popping your back, and also using a weird vibrator that he built off of a jigsaw. Yeah, a little weird, very reflexology. But anyway, the dude's a quack, and I made a video on him, and his followers were ravenously pissed. They're out for my blood, trying to send me all sorts of weird threats and emails and crazy, kooky stuff. And I loved it. I loved it. It was so fun. These people are so stupid, so incredibly cult-like. It was so wild. So I was enjoying it quite a bit, but unfortunately, all that attention kind of petered off, and they haven't been writing me as many messages these days. So there's really only one thing left to do. We're just going to have to make another video on Dr. Bergman. And I can hear already you saying, well, Jeff, doesn't that seem kind of cheap? Well, not at all. Because you see, in the grand scheme of dumb shittery that this guy believes, on top of him popping very, very vulnerable and young children's spines, he also has problems with believing in AIDS. Yeah, he's a bit of an AIDS skeptic. AIDS skeptic. And yet again, I'm going to have to remind you guys that I am on the same footing as Dr. John Bergman as far as being able to talk about, well, medicine and proper treatments for things like cancer or viruses or disease. I have just as much of an accreditation to deal with it as he does. He is certified to pop your back. I am certified to tell you, well, pretty much anything now, because Doctor of Divinity means I'm certified in everything. Thus speaketh the Lord! Anyway, let's watch this pile of crap.
Welcome to True Health Tuesdays. Tonight we're talking about AIDS and HIV. And we're gonna explore it a little bit different. Kind of like what the public knows, what the public thinks they know, and what are actual facts. And the most frustrating thing when you're talking not about just HIV, AIDS, or cancer, or any of these diseases, but you can get the same disease, okay? Information from two different sources is totally different.
I would imagine so. For instance, if I was to ask somebody who is an immunologist, somebody who studies microbes, bacteria, that sort of thing, they might tell me the truth, and then I might ask you, and you might tell me a bunch of bullshit. Huh. Funny how that works.
Now, symptoms in 40 to 90% of the cases, so already that should bother you. Okay, so that means not everybody has the same symptoms. And so we're talking fever, tender lymph nodes, throat inflammation, RAS, headache, nausea, and vomiting, and diarrhea. Now, granted, there are other conditions that have those same symptoms. Now, what spreads it?
Now, I'm just going to cut to the chase, and I'm sure he'll be demonstrating this in a little bit. But part of his theory, when it comes to these symptoms, the reason why he's bringing this up in the manner that he is because he's going to paint a picture about how some people have these symptoms but are told they have AIDS but probably don't have AIDS. He says this because it's just a thing that he thought up. It's not actually something that's based in reality. But his evidence that this is the case is because only sometimes 40%, 40 to maybe 90% of the cases have these symptoms, but what about the ones that don't have those symptoms? And that right there is enough evidence for him that probably these other people, they got something else, and the doctors, well, they're just wrong.
So in 2014, there were 44,000 diagnosed with HIV, 26,000 with full-blown AIDS. Death is about 7,000.
I really want to point out, like, the full-blown AIDS is always it's just a classy-ass statement. Thank you for that.
1,000 a year. Okay, now Look at the CDC. The death of a person with an AIDS diagnosis can be due to any cause, that is, the death may or may not be related to AIDS. Okay, now, if you're smoking enough weed to understand this, okay, because grass is legal in California, okay, they're giving you the death statistics, and then they're saying it may or may not be related to AIDS.
And this right here demonstrates why Dr. Bergman should never open his fucking mouth about what AIDS is. I'll explain. For me to fully debunk this entire process of how he doesn't really grasp what he's talking about, we have to understand what AIDS is. AIDS is a syndrome. AIDS is not a virus, and AIDS is not a disease in that sense. It's a syndrome. It's a syndrome that is caused by the progression of a virus. That's how it works. HIV is the virus, and HIV, as it progresses, if you do not take the current schedule of antiretroviral drugs, will develop into a syndrome, and that syndrome is called AIDS. That's what that is. AIDS is not like, it's not a big spooky thing. It's a place that your body is at because you've had to deal with this virus trying to kill you for this long, and now you are much, much closer to the big end. So, and thankfully, most people today who have HIV, at least in the modern world, with modern medicine, will never, ever develop AIDS because we've gotten that good at treating it. But let's really, really examine how you die from AIDS. You see, most of the time when you expire from AIDS, it's because of an AIDS-related illness, but that related does not necessarily mean that it was caused by AIDS. You see, AIDS just simply means that your body's immune system no longer has the ability to fight something off. And depending on where it is that you are declared dead, they might say due to complications with AIDS/HIV, or they might say you died because of pneumonia. Even though the only reason your body couldn't fight off the pneumonia is because you had HIV/AIDS. That's how that works. It's not necessarily a hard rule on how we're going to determine it. It's pretty goddamn obvious. One of the reasons why is that this is the single most widely researched and understood virus in the history of mankind. But I digress. We'll get there in a minute. But opportunistic infections and AIDS-related cancers, that's right, AIDS-related cancers. AIDS can actually lead to promoting the development of certain types of cancers and tumors, etc., etc. Now, a few of these that I really wanted to point out, bacterial infections, fungal infections, parasitic infections, viral infections, these are things that are very, very common. Common AIDS-related cancers are anal cancer, cervical cancer, Kaposi sarcoma, or KS, those are the purple splotches on the skin. Lymphoma, and then there's also such things as HIV dementia and wasting syndrome. Now, all of this is pretty well understood, but some of these things you have to keep in mind. For instance, HIV dementia is when HIV starts invading your brain. And thankfully, most people aren't going to suffer from that because of the development of antiretroviral drugs. So, we're usually pretty good. But then also, HIV wasting syndrome, you're losing body weight, you already can't fight off major infections to begin with. Of course, these people might die from something that isn't AIDS, but they could be dying of something pretty much just because of the situation that AIDS put them in. We're just not going to call it that because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're dead anyway, and they're still going to go into the AIDS statistics.
The statistics are horrible. 2 million new cases. 1.2 million in the U.S., estimated 50,000. So it seems like it's still growing.
Why does he just fumble over that? Like, he's like, 1.2 million. 1.2 million what? 1.2 million what? Oh, people died from AIDS-related illnesses in 2014. Yeah, they did. They absolutely did. 2 million new cases of HIV in 2014, then 1.2 million died. Now, the vast majority of those that did die were in the developing world. He's not going to mention that. He's not going to say anything about that in the statistics because it doesn't help his argument. Not at all. He doesn't like the fact that, unfortunately, AIDS is a very real thing that is killing millions of people all over the fucking world in the developing places where they don't have access to medicine. He mumbles through this whole thing and assuming that everybody's just going to believe what he's saying. And why? Because of the grift.
Okay. How are they diagnosing it? So, and I love this. How does the CDC know who is infected or it doesn't? Okay, is that a good question? Because they're the one, the Center for Disease Control. Off the CDC site, the CDC estimates the number of people living with HIV called prevalence by using a scientific model. This model helps the CDC estimate the new number of HIV infections and how many people are infected, but they don't know it.
One of the problems with this is we're still not quite at what Dr. Bergman's ideas are. Right now, he's just kind of throwing shade at the idea of statistical analysis to try and predict how many people are infected with HIV or who have developed AIDS. Well, there's a great resource that I found, actually, and it's over here at kff.org, the Kaiser EDU. They detail at length one of the problems with trying to get accurate statistical data. Largely, this is because when somebody has developed AIDS, they know they have AIDS. They are very symptomatic, and then that is a very good, easy picture, because everybody's going to be reporting that they have AIDS. Well, we can at least hope. The vast majority will. But one of the problems with HIV is you can be very asymptomatic. You cannot know that you have it for a long time. Of course. In Bergman's mind, this is a way to throw shade at whether or not HIV is as prevalent as it actually is, and not instead one of the things that we need to be aware of so that we get proper testing. This is one of the quintessential and fundamental problems with him trying to claim that he is any kind of doctor. One of the most important things if you're going to be a doctor is you have to first and foremost do no harm. And part of that is being not incredibly naive and willfully ignoring things that otherwise could potentially save people's lives. That Dr. Bergman himself specifically and intentionally does this is a testament to how much of a monster he is and how much he has no business with the word doctor in front of his name. None. But let's continue. We have a method called STARS, and it's not the only method, but it is one of the ones that helps with the predictive model. And what this does, this new type of testing using assays, which I will let you read on this later, links in the description below. It's actually pretty fascinating how they do this to understand whether or not an HIV infection is recent or long-standing. And now that we have this and we can then test people and their blood using this method, we are able to understand that our predictive model that we've been working with for years and years and years is very accurate. It corroborates it. You know, that thing that never happens to Dr. Bergman's claims. Nothing corroborates it except for the things that he just says. And people just go, okay, sounds good to me. You guys need to start thinking for yourself. Okay, so let's cut through all the chaff and let's go straight to what he believes. What is Bergman trying to sell us?
2008, we're talking Nobel Prize-winning biologist. Scientists are no further forwarding development of a vaccine against HIV after more than 20 years of research. I love this. Co-chairman of the HIV Vaccine Summit. Despite hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, the reality in 2008 is that HIV vaccine clearly remains beyond our grasp. Now, why is that? Have they ever isolated the virus?
You can't make a vaccine for something that
doesn't there.
If you didn't quite catch that, and maybe if you're just kind of passively watching this right now, it's really easy to miss that, to miss that one little statement there. Let's hear it again.
You can't make a vaccine for something that
doesn't there.
So it's hard to make a vaccine for something that doesn't exist. Hold that thought.
Factors known to cause false positives on antibody test. Page 2. I'm not sorry about the small print. Because to find the truth behind a disease that doesn't exist, this is criminal. You gotta look at the small print. Because by God, when you look at this, acute viral infections, hepatitis, antibodies for blood transfusions, multiple transfusions. That's one of the biggest things. If you get a foreign protein in your system, your body builds antibodies to it. Nobody has ever checked the antibody production of 69 doses of 16 different vaccines in our children today. Does that give a positive antibody test? Nobody knows.
What are you talking about? First and foremost, did you actually try and say that AIDS doesn't exist? HIV doesn't exist. And instead, he's implying that anytime you take an HIV antibody test, it's just instead triggering because of any number of these other different things? Weird. The virus that we have studied more than any other virus ever in the history of everything, we could just automatically accidentally get it wrong. Maybe he thinks that the claim that we know it the best is because we just keep getting it accidentally triggered by a bunch of things that it isn't. That doctors are just fucking idiots. That somehow this genius here knows better than them. Well, by all means, why don't you show us your research, Dr. Bergman? Why not? This is so fascinating to me. I don't understand. And there's an implication that's in there too. There's an implication that vaccines given to children could contain antibodies that then later are attributed to HIV. That the vaccines are not causing AIDS because AIDS isn't real, but instead vaccines are causing fake HIV. I did not make this argument. He did. He did it. That's this guy. It's his fault, not mine. I cannot even wrap my head around this shit. Oh boy. Now, the next little bit of this is talking about antibodies and HIV AIDS. Now, we're going to kind of have to mash some of this together because otherwise this is going to be a very, very long video. So forgive if there's a lot of cuts. I can assure you, there's a link to the description. In the description of this whole thing, if you want to see it in full context. I'm not taking him out of context at all, but if you want to check, you can. But I've got to chop this up, or otherwise we're going to be here all day.
HIV tests are not the test for AIDS. You're going to see they're not the test for HIV. We're using antibodies to test the level of your body's ability to fight something. And supposedly, when you have a lot of antibodies, you're supposed to be protected. Okay, now that's totally not true. So looking for antibodies doesn't really indicate that you have had exposure. But what in every other disease, what science is telling you is that if you have a lot of antibodies, you're protected from the disease. Except in this. I mean, for sure, many experts believe that HIV antibody positive means that you've successfully mounted a defense and you can fight off the virus.
Okay, I need to very, very simply sum this up. Nothing of what you just said is even remotely true. That the basic understanding of immunology has completely escaped Dr. Bergman. In no way does any of that make any sense. And even more so, the claim that they're mounting a defense against the HIV and AIDS. You are aware that we can't cure these things, right? That so far only in very rare isolated circumstances does anybody ever become completely asymptomatic. That we don't have this massive cure. Yet I have a suspicion that somewhere down the line in this video you're gonna suggest a natural and holistic approach to dealing with HIV/AIDS. That's just that's maybe that's my psychic abilities awakening to be able to predict on where we're going to be going in our journey through this video.
Babe, I didn't test positive yet, but I'm working for it.
What the fuck was that sound? Jesus Christ, it sounds like a coyote excited to devour a rabbit. I mean, what? Is that like his performing call to summon all of the seals for the tasty fish at SeaWorld?
Fact 3, HIV testing has never been approved by the FDA. Are you aware of that? the Western blot, the Elias O, all the different tests, they've never been shown to be approved by the FDA. No HIV test, whether it uses blood, urine, saliva, has ever been approved by the Food and Drug Administration.
On July 3rd, 2012, the Food and Drug Administration approved the OraQuick in-home HIV test, a rapid home-use HIV test kit that does not require sending a sample to a laboratory for analysis. The kit provides a test result in 20 to 30 minutes, and you can test yourself in your own home. The United States Food and Drug Administration regulates the tests that detect infection with human immunodeficiency virus, the virus that causes AIDS. AIDS is a serious disease that can be fatal because the body has lost the ability to fight infections and cancers. There are a number of options for people to be tested for HIV using tests approved by FDA. Number 1. Trained health professionals collect a sample and run the test in a professional medical setting. You receive your test results from a trained health professional. 2. You collect a sample in the home, forward the sample to a medical laboratory, and trained health professionals run the test in the medical laboratory. 3. You collect a sample, run the test, and obtain your own test results in your home. Every single one of those approved by the FDA. Bergman wants to try and put forth this denialism, this idea in your head that HIV and AIDS aren't even real, and that there's a mass conspiracy, because there has to be, otherwise every doctor is an idiot. In the world of somebody who holds this type of a conspiratorial mindset towards HIV and AIDS, either every doctor is an idiot or every doctor is in on the plot. And only he knows the truth. So we're going to skip forward a little bit past some of the weird and wacky to the straight bizarre. But some of the things that we do skip, and maybe if you're interested, you should watch this video. Despite him not thinking that HIV or AIDS are a thing, he is very eager to say how you just can't catch it anyway if you're having heterosexual sex. He also cites David Crow, the guy from Rethinking AIDS, the biggest AIDS denialist website on the internet. And then he craps all over HRVs, antiretroviral drugs, those things that changed in AIDS HIV diagnosis to a death sentence. Change that from you're gonna die to actually you could live the rest of your life totally healthy as long as you take your medicine, and then you'll never develop into AIDS. Screw those pills, those amazing life-saving pills that stopped an epidemic from being an epidemic of death to something that we could manage. And then he says this.
Now, what's the real cause of this? Remember, we're talking foreign proteins into the body mounts in response to it. They used to call it GRID, gay-related immune deficiency syndrome. And one of the reasons is some of the drugs that would weaken the immune system, they were called poppers. They actually weaken the immune system response and increase the lung infection.
Doing poppers, taking drugs, caused AIDS? Is that what you're saying? Keep listening.
But also, when we look at this, what are some of the other foreign proteins that have been injected into us? Now, in the 50s, we had 7 vaccines. Okay, 7 total. In the 70s, we had 13 total. When we look at now, we've got 69 doses of 16 different vaccines. But look what happened in the 70s. We started to get 5 different oral polio vaccines. Now, this was known that the simian virus, the SIV virus, it's SIV40 virus, but there was a lot of different monkey viruses. See, the polio vaccine, viruses don't grow on their own. They're a well-organized molecular parasite. So in order to grow the polio virus, you have to put infected tissue on monkey tissue. And we actually use green monkeys. I mean, they're really, really cool for growing and reproducing polio. So I know what you're worried about, Doc. You're worried about transferring, viruses that may be on there, and you're trying to isolate just the polio vaccine. He's just a scaredy cat. So back in the 50s, they said, screw it. Let's just inject this in a bunch of people, and then let's give them this oral polio. Okay, 5 doses of it. What'd you say? Why not 6? Do I hear 7? Do I hear 3? There's no science behind this. Okay.
There's no science behind this yet. Yet, Bergman has made this claim that defies all logic. Let's break it down. For a very long time, we've had this theory going that HIV was a crossing over of SIV into human beings, or simian immunodeficiency virus. It mutated enough that it then got into humans, and it led to all sorts of silly theories that somebody had sex with a monkey, and that's how now we have HIV, which, sure, let's just believe that one. Why not? But, so there's this idea that this largely comes from apes. Now, Bergman's claim, and this is not just his, but also the claim of many AIDS denialists, is that whatever this infection is, because it's not HIV and it's not AIDS, is instead caused by the polio vaccine. The polio vaccine, which was grown using simian tissue, then got all of the HIV in it. And so we were dropping HIV in polio vaccines into children's mouths, and they just got HIV. Despite the fact that we gave those polio vaccines to millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of children, and the vast majority of people who ever have HIV are full-blown adults. I'm sure there's something in his completely dumb shit mind that there's like a time lock and it unlocks the HIV later on in life or something like that. I don't know. I don't know how he tries to rationalize it away, but it doesn't make any sense either way. Or that the numbers themselves don't even add up for how many we gave versus how many actual cases of HIV there were. Or the fact that there's never been any kind of study that corroborates that getting that type of vaccine leads to that type of situation, to getting tested positive for HIV. There's no evidence, no nothing, just we grew the polio vaccine in monkeys, and so the polio vaccine causes HIV/AIDS. I cannot for the life of me understand how anybody takes this guy seriously. I don't understand. I'm struggling how anybody takes AIDS denialism seriously, but especially Dr. Bergman, because he's just such a smarmy asshole about it.
I spoke at a conference, called Lightning in a Bottle. I was very excited because they were asking how to survive in a medical world that's not based in science. And I thought, man, this is great. And I think, no, I'm not going to need facts or anything. I'm talking about the body being smart and healthy and everything else. And I go up there and I say, vaccines are not good. They trigger an inflammatory response. And this girl goes up and says, what about polio? And I go, wait a second. Are you under the impression that polio affected a lot of people? Yeah! And I said, well, okay, you realize that 1 in 1,000 people had permanent paralysis. Yeah! So that means 99.9% of everybody that got it got over within about 2 weeks with no permanent markers whatsoever.
I feel like there's so many things at this point that I could say about this, but instead I'm just going to use facts, because otherwise I'm just going to scream about how much I hate this man. So let's just take a look at polio really super quick. Now, going off the World Health Organization statistics, the last time that polio was very, very severe was about 1988, and that was 350,000 cases. These days, it's practically nobody, and that's because of vaccines. But despite that, Dr. Bergman would tell you that it's 1 in 1,000 children that might become paralyzed from polio. It's actually about 1 in 200, so it's about times 5 what he claimed. And of those, 5 to 10% of those children infected will die when the muscles that control their breathing become immobilized. So they just die. But in Bergman's eyes, that's hardly anybody. So what does it matter? Well, it's not hardly anybody. You see, polio reached a peak in the United States in 1952 with more than 21,000 paralytic cases. That's a lot. And if you reverse the math around, that's anywhere from 1 to 2,000 children that died that year because they couldn't breathe, because polio racked their little bodies so much that they didn't even have the ability to expand their chest so they could take in air. But, I mean, you know, who cares about that? I mean, it's just, don't you know? It's all just a big scam anyway. This man is a monster.
In the 50s and 60s, may have caused the AIDS epidemic. Okay, HIV testing is extremely inaccurate. Antiretroviral treatments can produce and probably will kill you, and it may even cause AIDS. This information has been suppressed. It is. I mean, 2009, you're talking over $11 billion in the antiretroviral drugs. And in just 1 year, you're not talking about the billions of dollars flowing in. Okay, what are the natural solutions? I mean, you're looking at standard whey protein, anything to stimulate glutathione synthesis. Oh,
whey protein? Man, I've been drinking them protein whey smoothie things after I've been working out. I ain't ever gonna get HIV or AIDS. I'm just gonna go out and have unprotected sex with everybody.
What decreases glutathione? Tylenol. Okay, what decreases the immune system? The poppers. Okay, curcumin, antioxidants, selenium, licorice, fruits and vegetables.
Licorice?
Seaweed, St. John's wort, shiitake mushrooms, pomegranates, rosemary, blue algae. I mean, we're talking about everything. I know it sounds crazy.
Yes, it does! It sounds absolutely insane!
But if you think everything that you do to strengthen your immune system is good, stuff that you do that weakens the immune system is bad. Okay? I'm going to give you AZT. It's the most toxic drug ever. It was removed from the market because it was too poisonous for cancer. Okay,
oh
we're going
my
to give you
God.
that.
No, oh my God. Oh no. No, 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 no. One of the most insulting things in the world is thinking that you have to debunk something that is so ludicrous that it feels like somebody's spitting in your face by even speaking it to you. Yet at the same time, we live in a world where I do have to do that. That is my job. That is what I do with this channel right here. I have to listen to effectively people spitting in my face and insulting my intelligence because there are enough people out there who are so desperate to try and find some answers or to try and feel special by understanding something that others don't, that they will believe the absolute bullshit that is coming out of this man's mouth. It is offensive that I have to try and debunk this. Seaweed? Shiitake mushrooms and rosemary are gonna fight your HIV? The notion that anything good for your immune system is good and anything bad for your immune system is bad? Holy shit. Oh my God. Calm down, Einstein. Where the hell did you get that fresh, hot material? And then completely ignoring the fact that the reason why HIV and AIDS is so dangerous is because it suppresses your immune system. No? Nothing? Okay. And the thing that really gets to me, the thing that really, really bothers me about this video, it's the laugh. Now, all the rest of it, like you might think that, I'm offended by him crapping all over life-saving drugs. It bothers me. You might say, it's him crapping all over the established science behind our testing methods. Yeah, that bothers me. But that's not what really gets to me. It's the laugh.
Yeah. You eat 70 pounds of vegetables in an hour, you will die. You know, you like oranges? Are oranges good for you? Yeah, get hit by a crate. Okay, no.
You're not funny! So, in summation, me, Dr. Holiday, speaking on the same intellectual level of immunology and virology and medicine as this baby backcracker, Dr. Bergman, you're wrong. This video was awful, and you should feel bad. I think that you should stop claiming to be a doctor, cancel all of your appointments, sell your business, in other words, remove thyself from the public eye, because I have a feeling that everything you touch turns to shit, and that's because you, yourself, sir, are a giant pile of shit. I hope nobody is getting confused by my words here. I know I've used a lot of big words, and a lot of people who are fans of Dr. Bergman might get kind of tripped up a little bit by them. But you know what? I got faith in you. Anyway, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for your attention. By the way, I wanted to let you know, I did upload a clip of Uncle Ted's road trip. You see, Uncle Ted has been apparently hacking my Twitch channel, and he has been playing some American Truck Simulator, and so that's over on my second channel. Here's a clip. This is the worst part right here. Right here is this last curve. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh, I think we fucked that dude up. I think we fucked that dude up. Let's just not stop, and maybe we'll just assume he's dead and he can't testify, and everything will be fine. Hang on, I'll get to your penis questions in just a moment. Oh my god. And that's also a really good way for me to show my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/RealJeffHoliday. Anyway, from my family to yours, I hope you are well and hope they are well, and you take care of yourselves. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.